What do you want? It is a simple question, but I think we can often find ourselves in a place of want. Want can be material, but want can also be our daily questions and anxieties. Psalm 23 depicts want as an unnecessary burden for those that know the love of God. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But how are we to access that peace? Today's psalm is one of the better known passages, both within Christian communities and otherwise. The speaker describes the eternal guiding love of God with beautiful imagery and familiar biblical metaphors. The speaker and God are portrayed in a couple of roles. God appears as a watchful shepherd, ever considerate of his flock's needs. The shepherd leads the sheep to calm waters and green pastures and away from dangerous places. This comparison appears frequently throughout the scriptures, both with God in the Hebrew Bible and Jesus in the New Testament being referred to as loving shepherds. God is described also as a gracious host who invites the speaker to the table, anoints their head, and fills their cups. The two metaphors go hand in hand to create a powerful depiction of a loving God who is our constant provider. But consider your role in the story. How do you fit into the role of a sheep? Well, what exactly does it mean to be a sheep? Sheep are stubborn and mindless. Sheep are a major commitment requiring not only food, water, and protection, but near constant guidance for those things. With the way they are described, sheep seem to have an easier time finding trouble than staying out of it. It's not a flattering metaphor, but it makes more sense when we feel lost, stubborn, or confused. Today we find ourselves in the midst of the Lenten season. We are called to live simply and spend time inwardly to prepare for the death and resurrection of Christ. Lent has given me time to consider the role of want in our lives. Constant advertisements, success stories, and more ideal ways of life keep us always moving, never content. In this age of excess, we can easily chase after that next best thing forever. And compared to the world that David lived in, we can meet most of our wants and needs in minutes. We live in easily accessible luxury, and I think that's our issue. Living in that world of immediate gratification, we lose sight of true contentedness. When we always have access to the next best thing, our cups are always changing. And this has a real effect on how we live. Will this job work out? Will I get this done in time? Will I be happier if that happens? Will my loved ones be happy with me? Were things better in the past? Why didn't that work out? Will I meet that standard? We can fill our lives with questions like these. And all of us have our own specific concerns, but that push for more and better digs a hole that we can't possibly fill on our own. We find it harder and harder to be at peace. Maybe your wants are material, driven by the constant stream of commercials and societal pressure to have more. Maybe your wants are more abstract, dealing with family life or career issues. Either way, we can't stay still for too long. We are sheep wandering, seeking out something better, newer, possibly more fulfilling. We can spend our days always after the next thing, but when does that end? When will our cups be filled if we are always wanting for more? The short story A River Runs Through It by Montana native Norm McLean is a wonderful book that I recommend to anyone. It has excellent depictions of fishing and rural life in Montana, but a lot of wisdom that we can take in our daily lives. I want to share a particular quote that speaks to this experience of wine. Something within fishermen tries to make fishing into a world perfect and apart. I don't know what it is or where, because sometimes it is in my arms and sometimes it is in my throat, and sometimes nowhere in particular except somewhere deep. Many of us would probably be better fishermen if we did not spend so much time watching and waiting for the world to become perfect. If you wait for life to be exactly how you want it, you very well could wait forever. When we try to lead ourselves to satisfaction, that road will never end. It's when we take a step back, give up the reins, and trust that God will take care of our needs that we can come closer to true satisfaction. We were never meant to go at it alone, and that's the role of the shepherd in our lives. But how do we refocus? Well, first, I'd encourage you to take a few deep breaths and try to clear your mind. Now think about this. Where do you go to escape the noise of your life? Your stresses, your wants? This could be a real physical place, but I don't necessarily mean it in that way. It could be a fond memory or a place from your past or a loved one. It is your own green pasture, a place where you can rest and feel safe. Indulge me for a moment while I share mine. My mom's side of the family comes from a small town in Mississippi named Louisville. It is spelled the same way as the city in Kentucky, but pronounced differently because Mississippians tend to do that. My parents moved back there recently, and they live near to my grandmother. There's a lake by our home that my great-grandfather dug. They live a couple miles away from our family land. It was a second home for me as a child. In our land, there's a long green field surrounded by pines on one side and hardwoods on the other. If you visit at this time of the year, you might see white-tailed deer, songbirds, or hear a turkey gobble in the early morning hours. The stillness is interrupted by nothing but spring wind. The greening begins early and the grass is blown in waves. My green pastures are there. The lake my predecessor built played such a significant role in my childhood. I learned to fish there and subsequently learned to lose a lot of good fishing gear because I have a knack for getting caught. I've seen it nearly dry and nearly overflowing. In the cool evenings of March, the geese sound off, followed by the never-ceasing chorus of frogs. The redbud bloom of early spring heralds my favorite time of year and my favorite place. My still water is there. Now, why does all that matter? It's a call to peace. I'm physically in Wyoming and mentally in a place of great uncertainty as to where my life will take me next. I have a lot of wishes and wants and questions and anxieties, and I could spend all my time on those if I wanted to. But I find significant peace in visiting these places. As an aimless sheep, the shepherd leads me to these places often and restores my soul. God meets our needs in many different ways, and we are all receptive to different things. However, I encourage you to explore those places which are marked on your heart. Regroup there, root there, rest there. Escape from the busyness and the longing. The shepherd leads you there in love and providence. Take time to rest by the still waters and green pastures. All you need to do is allow yourself the time and the space. Slow down once in a while and be still. We don't always have to know how things will play out. We just have to know that we will never be in want when we trust the Lord. Reach out your hand if your cup is empty. If your cup is full,